name is Alexandria, and I am a University of Saskatchewan medical sociology graduate student working under the supervision of Dr. Colleen Dell, who is the Centennial Enhancement Chair of One Health and Wellness and the PAWSYourStress Therapy Dog Program founder. It's a very long title. I first wanted to give a land acknowledgement, as I am presenting today from Treaty 6 territory, the homeland of the Métis. The One Health and Wellness Office wanted to pay respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place. My colleagues and I are here today presenting on our transition of hosting therapy dog visits online for improving mental health in person to a fully online and remotely delivered program. If you are a practitioner or community member in the audience who's working alongside basically any type of volunteer-based program, there is going to be a ton of valuable information about how to transition something from in-person to online. So really, if you in any capacity are working with a program that offers that aiming comfort or improve social connections, we hope you can apply any of the takeaways we will be sharing to your own practice. And this definitely is not just for those who have access to animals. So as we can see on the overview here, I will be presenting alongside Ben Carey, who is here with Lola. He is the current Therapy Dog Program co-coordinator, as well as Shanice Fletcher-Hildebrand, who is a master's student in applied social psychology. And we'll be talking about our various experiences working with therapy dogs in the context of COVID-19. Following a whole bunch of information, we are also going to have a live interactive visit with Tanya Werchenko and her Great Pyrenees therapy dog Zaphod, who is our very fluffy guest here. We will also have a period of time for questions and answers at the end of the workshop. We ask that you hold on to these until the end because we do want to make sure that we give ample time to kind of give you a live interaction with Tanya and Zaphod. But to begin, when everybody filed into the Zoom room, we were asking how many of you have animals at home and what type. So I'm just taking a look at the poll list. It looks like about 60% of people have animals at home. What kind of animals? Only dogs and cats. That surprises me. We usually get like a couple of weird animals here and there, but the dogs are still in the majority, which is good because this is a presentation about therapy dogs. Most of my colleagues, as you can see, have been working from home with their animal companions, which have been massively important to our mental health because so many of us are unable to go out and socialize due to the pandemic. As I'm sure many of you can attest, those of you who do have animals at home, they are an integral part of our lives, and we wanted to highlight this with a quick video of our therapy dog program. The program is called PAWSYourStress, which is a volunteer-based program at the University of Saskatchewan. It began in 2015 with the aims of improving wellness, not just for students, but staff, faculty, and community members as well.
Hi, I'm Womble, one of the St John Ambulance therapy dogs who visits people at the University of Saskatchewan. Research shows that by simply being around a therapy dog, it can help to lower a student's blood pressure and stress levels and improve their overall mental health. We remind students that they matter and that their well-being is important in the eyes of the university. Here, my friend Winston, another St John Ambulance therapy dog, is helping a student deal with the stress of university life. Winston, S'more and I, along with the other therapy dogs visiting campus, provide support, love and comfort to students the best way we know how. I get to see the immediate smiles on students' faces when they visit with me and other therapy dogs. I know therapy dogs like us play an important role on campus because people tell us all the time, and research is saying the same thing. I can't wait to keep visiting more places with my therapy dog friends so that we can make even more connections around campus.
So as Womble told us in the video, animals can absolutely provide love, comfort, and support to humans. We can measure and assess this dynamic through something called the human-animal bond. Key here is how the relationship between people and animals is influenced by the behaviors and well-being of both. It is a reciprocal relationship. It can also encompass all aspects of one's being, even extending out into the broader environment, which is where One Health comes in. As mentioned previously, our lead is Dr. Colleen Dell, who is the Centennial Enhancement Chair in One Health and Wellness at USask. All of our lab activities look at the connection between people, animals, and the environment. One Health also builds upon the concept of zooea, which is the positive benefits to human health that occur from interacting with animals. We specifically focus on companion animals, or in most cases, dogs. So all of our One Health research utilizes something called animal-assisted intervention, which is any activity that includes an animal to promote improvements to an individual's physical, social, emotional, or cognitive functioning. There are a ton of different names for the ways that animals can help humans: equine therapy, animal-assisted activity, animal-assisted learning. One of the key focuses that Ben is going to address is the idea of animal-related engagement. Recent research, including our own, indicates that online engagement with animals can actually allow participants to feel the benefit of a human-animal interaction, but remotely. Our program is currently doing this with therapy dogs, visiting with humans through live Zoom sessions, which you're going to get to experience firsthand later on. So what does the evidence say? We know that animals make most of us feel better, but how does this work? On the physiological level, this interaction can reduce heart and respiration rates, increases our skin temperature. Changes also occur chemically. For example, our cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone, these change. Oxytocin, which is the love or feel good hormone, that also changes. These are all basically indicative of the relaxation of our parasympathetic nervous system, whereas our sympathetic nervous system, which is where our fight or flight mechanism is activated from, has actually been shown to decrease during these interactions. So a great example of this is seen with military veterans suffering from nervous system hyperarousal as a result of PTSD. And this is why service dogs are so effective in helping veterans with self-regulation and healing. But socially, cognitively, psychologically, does anyone have suggestions for how else interacting with dogs can make us feel better outside of physical changes? Feel free to type any ideas that you may have into the chat, and I will try to check both of these. I'll give you a few moments for feedback. And just as a note to our participants, I'm sorry if we don't acknowledge everyone who's sending responses in. We just want to make sure that we do have enough time to visit with Tanya and Zaphod. Companionship, yes, 100%. Animals definitely are like a very strong, stable social support in the lives of a lot of people, as I'm sure most of the participants can speak to here. There's also obviously increased feelings of love, comfort, support. It provides an opportunity to be in the moment. There is so much that has been shown in the research, and this area is only growing. Look at this list here. There's way more than that we didn't even have time to fit on the slide. But one thing we do have to acknowledge, however, is that not everyone has access to an animal or the ability to live with one. And this is where our community partners come in. Our program's success has only been made possible as a direct result of our partnership with St. John Ambulance, which is a nationwide organization where therapy dog handlers are made up entirely of volunteers, like Tanya and Zaphod. Each therapy dog team has undergone testing and screening based on a national standard. Both Ben and I actually do evaluations for St. John's, and as much as the dog is being assessed for behavioral components, we are also looking at how the handler and dog work together as a team, because the handler is often the one that is leading the animal-assisted interaction. In Saskatchewan specifically, our St. John's dogs are super special because they are constantly working as active research partners on a variety of projects. In the summer of 2019, for example, we did the first controlled trial in an emergency department looking at how visiting therapy dogs can impact patient pain levels. Our goal is always to have every activity we do be evidence-based. That is the basis of all of our programming. And later in the workshop, Tanya and Zaphod can probably tell you about some of the research that they have done either on campus or in the community. But we have been spending a lot of time talking about therapy dogs, which can also be called comfort dogs. The reason that we stick with the title of therapy dogs is because that is the name that St. John uses. So we just want to keep it consistent. But does anybody know the difference between, say, a service dog or a therapy dog? Or maybe there are other types of working dogs you've maybe heard of or come across. I'll give you a few moments again to contribute to the chat. It is very tricky checking both Zoom and the Whova app. Different outfits. Yeah, as you can clearly see here, you can usually pretty quickly tell the difference between a service dog and a therapy dog based on their attire. A therapy dog, for example, usually is wearing a bandana, as seen with the moose here, the St. John's ambulance bandana, whereas a service dog will usually be wearing a vest. Oftentimes you will see that a service dog will have signs that say "do not touch" or "do not pet me," because these are dogs that are trained for a specific task for one individual. They shouldn't be disturbed while they're out working with their owner, whereas a therapy dog, their job is to be social and happy with strangers. So more often than not, it's totally a-okay if you go up and just ask if you can give them a pet, because that is their job and they love it, as I'm sure Tanya and Zapod can tell you all about. But to tie all of this information back to why the Pause Your Stress program exists, we very simply wanted to improve community wellness, not just for students, but staff and faculty as well, so that dogs could provide support and reduce stress all across our campus community. As stated in our opening video, our office has conducted a ton of studies alongside other university campuses with major positive findings. But the long-term program goals, we've been hoping that by having therapy dogs on campus, we will be able to increase student retention, improve social pathways and connections across campus, do further animal-assisted intervention education, as well as One Health awareness. Basically, we just really want to have therapy dogs further accepted as a feasible and complementary practice for improving mental health in a variety of spaces, because the evidence does exist that they absolutely have therapeutic value. These goals listed here were a part of our in-person program evaluation, which Shanice is actually going to speak to at length near the end, but it is important to note that prior to COVID-19, we were having multiple therapy dog visits on campus every single week. When the pandemic struck, our campus closed and we had to cancel all of our therapy dog visits. I was coordinating the program at that time, and the events being canceled caused massive distress to a lot of our community members. We were having upwards of like 200 to 400 people sometimes coming to see these dogs. And I regularly receive feedback from students and staff about how these events were their absolute favorite part of being on campus. It made them feel like they were valued and that they mattered in the eyes of the university, especially for the students who were away from home for the very first time and missed their pets. So when our visits ceased, this left a massive gap in an essential university service. So we had to improvise to ensure that we could maintain this connection and wellness resource, which is what Ben is now going to tell us all about.
Sorry about that, I was muted. Hi, as Alexandria said, I am Ben, and this is Lola, who's going to be co-presenting with me today. So I'm the current Pause Your Stress coordinator, and I work to develop the transition from an in-person to an online environment. We produced a lot of content for the beginning of the project until now with the help of an amazing team. And I thought the easiest way to tell you about it would be to show you what we've done, along with some of the amazing dogs behind our work like this one. So here we go. So I'm here to tell you why and how we moved our dogs online. So when the program moved online, it was at the very start of the pandemic, honestly. There was a super sudden transition of everyone working from home, and it was such a confusing time for many of us, me included. We launched the program officially in April of 2020, which started by organizing and training our handler and amazing therapy dog teams, all of whom were just a little bit lost and saddened by the loss of activities that they used to share with their dogs every single week. The St. John's Ambulance Program in Saskatoon alone, which is where we operate, has over 100 teams active. We started with the teams which regularly visited our campus, University of Saskatchewan, as there was a relationship between me and Alexandria and the rest of the team that we could build on and would be comfortable with us contacting them frequently about being online. Especially with all the confusion that was going up. And we just want to know that there was people that were up to the challenge. So the biggest question that we had at the start of this program was would this program provide support? Is there a reason for it? Would people want this? Would they benefit from it? And it was honestly one of the largest worries that we had. And Shanice will talk about this a little bit more. We looked around and we saw that there was already so much evidence that this was the right move. For example, there is already a world of online dog videos out there. It's one of YouTube's largest category of videos. I think we can all probably remember around 2005 when YouTube was first starting off and the internet was first starting off. What did everybody email back and forth or text or send memes of? It was all cat videos all the time. I don't think anybody sent anything other than ridiculous cat and dog videos. And it just shows that people want these videos and they love our dogs. They love our therapy dogs. It was such a difficult time for everybody. And we just wanted to provide a little bit of that connection with these dogs, with these animals that all these people benefited from, and might make this whole crazy year a little bit easier. So what does it take to make an online program from scratch? We turned an in-person program into an online program with therapy dogs, but there is such a need for many kinds of volunteer programs to either transition online or incorporate online programming. So what does it take to make it from scratch? Really, staff and handler training was the most important thing while developing the program. There was so much new technology to learn, and not just if you were making this program. I think I had to teach my grandparents how to use Zoom about 15 different times, but now it's something that we all share. We're shifting into a digital world and we need to be able to set up the infrastructure to share our programs in that way. But there was so much for our handlers to learn. There was Facebook Live videos, there was Zoom. They were figuring out how to send me videos and pictures of their dogs all the time. And that required frequent phone calls, Zoom session, texts, and emails to facilitate the process and make it easier on our handlers. We also constructed a website from scratch, but I'm going to go into that in the next slide a little bit more. We use Google Analytics to track our website traffic and social media to track reach and who was viewing our content, really. Though we learned that social media is not a skill that you learn overnight. There's a lot that goes into it. Those influencers on Instagram actually have a lot more to do than we thought. And we also thought very hard about our goals for our content. For us, the main goal is providing positive programming to improve mental health, which could be accessed by anyone that needs it, and also to make sure that our animals were happy throughout this entire process. So I've got a website activity in here. I was able to find the Wayback Machine, which finds old versions of your website. And we're going to look back, and I'm hoping everybody can see this okay, but we're going to look back at at an old version of our website. And when we first started, for the first 5-6 months, we weren't getting any real traction on our website. We had a really high bounce rate, which means in layman's terms that people would come, not find what they were looking for, immediately leave. And there was no real reason for this website to exist if no one was using it to find what they needed. And we have a lot of different things to share on this site. We have book reading videos of children's books. We have information about our dogs, information about events coming up. So can anybody tell me why they think people would come to this site and just say, no, thank you, I'm not interested, and go find somewhere else for this information? And you can use the Whova app or the chat on here. But so just scrolling through, if I was to find something on this, if I wanted to find breathing with a dog, for example, I would have to scroll through, read paragraphs on paragraphs on paragraphs of things, look through, follow us on social media. There's no pictures of animals, that's right. We had a few more, the Wayback Machine kind of got rid of them, but it's severely lacking. It's a lot of text, isn't it, Donna? Shanice asks, where are the specific pages? Exactly. People couldn't find what they were looking for. The biggest takeaway that we learned, and we learned this through hiring an outside contractor, Harley at Deep Dish Media, is that you need to be able to figure out where you're going on the site. So if we look at the newest version of the site, all of a sudden, so many animals. This actually isn't Zaphod. We have a lot of great Pyrenees in our team. And instantly, if you want to find Zoom visits, you look through activities. If you want to learn about the dogs, you can click right here. If you want to learn what we've been up to lately or what our blog is, it's all right there. So the biggest takeaway from this is work with someone to develop your website, usually a professional. They know what they're doing, and it needs to be so accessible to be able to create a source that people are really going to use. Thank you, Desert. I agree. It's another thing to comment on this is I think a lot of us might be in the academic field, and the biggest thing that we all want to do is just write paragraphs. We want to write everything about our information because that's what we're used to. We're used to doing journals and everything, but the more pictures and the less text you can use, the more accessible it is, the more people are actually going to use it, which is really the key for a lot of our work. So I'm going to jump back into the presentation here. And now I'm going to play from current slide. Okay, good. I think I didn't screw that up this time. So what did we do? Just on the topic of keeping our dogs happy, that was really the key when we started this online transition. I think a great story for this is when we started our Zoom visits, which is what Shanice will talk about a little bit more. But we weren't sure if the dogs were going to enjoy the online content, because I think, as you can see with Lola, she enjoys being with me, but she can't really tell that I'm talking to a computer right now. But when we started the Zoom visits, basically the handlers would sit on the couch and talk to their laptop for a while, talk to the students on the laptop, but the dogs just knew they were talking to their laptop. But Wendy would do it with Womble, which is the one closest to the screen in that picture, that poodle there. And she would hang out with Womble and they would enjoy each other's company and just sit and talk to the students. But then after the next session, Ophelia, the non-therapy dog, was all of a sudden just roaming around. And by the third session, both dogs were right beside her the entire time. And ever since then, they've been right beside her because they love that quality time that they get to spend with their favorite person in the world. So even though they don't get to interact with all these students, they get to interact with their favorite person for an hour of their day, and they love it. We also developed unique products. The connection between animals and humans can help reduce feelings of stress and anxiety during the pandemic. And so we partnered with the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction and the Mental Health Commission of Canada to share that information more broadly, along with creative new ways to share the dogs. There was a constant need for ways to share them, and our live videos was the best way. So our live videos showcasing our dogs with mental health tips were developed to provide helpful information, but in a more indirect way. I think we can all remember when we look back at the start of the pandemic, everyone was telling us what to do, what not to do, how to stay safe. We wanted to share what our dogs were doing, but keeping a routine, learning something new, taking a walk outside, in hopes that people may recognize they might also enjoy doing those things and benefit. We also wanted to facilitate connections. So we did that by doing funny videos of dogs doing challenges, relaxing videos of dogs and cats sleeping or purring, special videos that our handlers wanted to share that they reached out to me to tell the story, book reading videos that we actually organized through Scholastic and local authors, and meme contests to the community, which was a great way to engage the community by telling them what they thought this picture should be captioned with, which I'll show you in the next page here. So at the evaluation at the midway point, we found that people responded well to our transition. In our process evaluation, people felt loved, comforted by, and connected to our dogs, and said that they learned and used our mental health information. Before the school year, we ran a needs assessment as well, which found that people wanted to reduce stress, learn about the dogs that they missed, but didn't necessarily come for the mental health tips. This is why at the start of the school year, we decided to focus more on connection than we did on teaching. So the biggest lesson that I learned through this transition, and what I would tell anyone wanting to transition a volunteer program online, is that it takes a lot of time and resources, especially at the beginning when your staff and volunteers are learning the new system. Expect delays and allotment of time. Training is so key. We created handbooks for each online activity that we did, as there can not only be a lot of fear for going online, but also you never know what's going to happen when you open up to an online world, and you have to be prepared for anything. Also expect that you will lose some volunteers, as there is a fear of the online world and a fear of being that exposed. And social media and online building just takes a lot of time. We really recommend either hiring a professional or getting somebody completely devoted to it on your team to learn everything they can about that whole different world. So in our post-evaluation focus, we focused on developing in-person Zoom sessions with the USass community and our students, to be able to bridge the gap between dogs and the students, being able to bring the students to the dogs and just talk with the handlers, see what they're up to, really facilitate that amazing connection. We started therapy dog drop-in sessions to USask meetings and beyond, which is a great way to break up the day. People request our dogs pop into the meeting for about 10 minutes. They get an awesome break. They get an awesome, when we start to feel a little bit more isolated, it's such an amazing break from that, because it's just a way to connect with somebody or some animal like this one. And wellness breathing webinars developed by Tanya and Zayfad. But I'm actually not going to talk about this too much, because we're going to take a pause. And Tanya and Zayfad are here to do a little breathing workshop with us. So I am going to spotlight her video here. And I'm going to just stop sharing for a second. So is everybody able to see Tanya and Zayfad there?
Hi, everybody.
Fabulous.
So this is Zayfad, and I'm Tanya. Happy to be here with you today. And I'll just say a couple of comments about my experience as a handler in the program and the transition from in-person visits, which we both loved doing, and we're doing, I would say, weekly, and seeing lots of people in a lot of different contexts. And when the pandemic came, I noticed Zayfad was actually really, it was a huge change for him, because he would be in these sites where there'd be hundreds of people, and he loves attention from hundreds of people at once. And suddenly that just stopped. And so actually, the reason that he doesn't have his St. John ambulance bandana on, and the reason I don't have my typical uniform on for this visit, is because one of the consequences of moving online, he still associates that bandana and my t-shirt with going out and seeing people. And so I tried it just last week because I knew this was coming up to see, and he still reacts to it. And so that's one of the consequences, because of course he doesn't get the benefit of your touch and of your voice in the same way as he would in person. He's just stuck with me, which is fine, but he misses it. So we don't bring out the bandana, we don't put on the uniform for anything we do online, but we are a St. John ambulance therapy dog team. So we have enjoyed being online, just getting comfy here. And it's been an opportunity for us to explore some maybe different things that we maybe wouldn't have offered in person. And yeah, some of the things Ben mentioned, like the training was so important for us as handlers, and the support from the team in terms of the technical capabilities was huge. But I guess the other perspective of being a handler online is sometimes I feel like I'm speaking into a one-way void. So I don't know necessarily who's on the other end. And so it can be a little bit, I don't even know what the word is. It can just be a little unsettling maybe, because you are kind of putting yourself out there and you don't know how people will respond or react, or whether they'll enjoy what you're offering or the invitations. So it's been great to have the support of the team just to encourage us as well a little bit. So enough chatting. Zaphod and I want to breathe with you. So I am also a yoga and meditation and breathwork teacher, and have been for about 15 years. And of course, the dog's respiration rate and the human respiration rate are very, very different. And so I'm going to talk us through a little square breathing. So you can just come to a comfortable position. Zaphod and I love to sit on the floor to do this. But you could be sat in your chair, or you could lie down if you wanted, or you could take this standing, whatever works in your context, in your body in this moment. And feel free to either keep your eyes open and you can watch Zaphod's breath. He's a pretty chill guy. Or you can close your eyes if you like. And just take notice of your breath as it is right now. You don't need to shift or change a thing. Notice where you feel the breath in your body. So is it prominent in your nose? Your throat? Your chest, etc., etc. And our breathing cycle typically has 4 parts. So it has an inhalation part, a pause after the inhalation, an exhalation, and then a pause at the end of the exhalation. And if you haven't studied your breath or observed it super closely, you might not be aware of those pauses. So we're going to become aware of those pauses. So to do square or box breathing, or sometimes it's called 4-count breathing, we're going to breathe to a count of 4 on the inhalation. We'll hold our breath for a count of 4. We'll exhale for 4, and then we'll hold our breath for 4. There's nothing magical about the number 4. If you find that rhythm doesn't serve you, change it up. Just keep it equal parts. Okay, let's give it a go. So having good posture, whatever that means for you in whatever place you're in. And we'll take an inhalation to the count of 4. So inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale, last round. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Return the breath to normal. Notice how you feel. Zaphod has fallen asleep. So focusing on our breath can be really helpful. Alexandria mentioned that parasympathetic nervous system thing, and there's a bunch of science behind that and the regulation of breath and just the emotional support that the breathing work in combination with seeing an animal can bring, I think. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tonya and Zaphod. That was great. This is just one example of what remote therapy dog programming can look like. And like Alexandria said, it's been a huge hit on our campus. So my name is Shanice, as Alexandria introduced me. I'm a graduate student in applied social psychology, and I've been doing evaluation work with the therapy dog team as part of my practicum. So Pause Your Stress began doing live Zoom sessions in September 2020 with USAS staff, students, faculty, and because the sessions are advertised on social media now, it's open to the broader community too. We began doing a process evaluation that looked at operational aspects of the program, such as inputs, activities, and the target audience. And of course, satisfaction levels were important to look at too. And I just want to go into the methodology a little bit in case anybody here is considering evaluation work for programs that they have transitioned online. Because the remote program was very exploratory, it was important to gain as many perspectives as possible through virtual data collection about how the program functions. So first we had a stakeholder meeting to determine which inputs and activities were relevant to the remote version of the program. Then we did an online mixed method questionnaire with program stakeholders following each Zoom session. And the main purpose of this was just to gather descriptive information about the sessions, who attended, what activities happened. And of course, we wanted to know their perceptions of participant engagement levels and their satisfaction with the sessions. So this was with the program coordinators, team members, animal handlers, and peer health mentors. And then we also did qualitative interviews with 10 people who attended the Zoom sessions. We really wanted to know how people learned about the sessions to assess advertising efforts, why people attended the session, what their perception of the program's purpose was, and their satisfaction too. Assessing this type of information can help people focus their program efforts based on what it is about the program that participants value, especially when it's a newly developed program with uncertain outcomes. Finally, we did a brief social media analysis to get a month-by-month look at followers and post interactions too. So I'll briefly go into some of the findings, and I'll start with perceived attendee engagement. Most program stakeholders reported that attendees were very engaged or somewhat engaged. This looked like people having their camera on, using the chat box, speaking out loud. One handler commented on 2 aspects of engagement that were commonly brought up. They said, they seem a bit shy to speak up, but they mostly seemed quite engaged. The majority stayed for the whole time, so they must have liked it. Stakeholders particularly enjoyed when the attendees were verbally interactive, and this speaks to the value that they placed on the connections that can occur within remote sessions. So using the chat box, if you were an animal handler, how would you go about engaging session attendees over Zoom? I'll give you 30 seconds or to a minute, and I'll just check both the chat boxes. Some things that we're currently doing to engage people in these Zoom sessions are things like question and answer, getting the handlers getting their dogs to do tricks or just petting their dogs. Just check the chat box again. Another important thing that emerged from the interview and questionnaire findings was that having a moderator to greet and say goodbye during the Zoom sessions was important to both the handlers, the team members, and the people who attended the sessions too. A big question though is whether it's necessary for attendees to be verbally engaged. Even if they don't have their camera on or speak, they can still be engaged with the dogs and humans by listening and watching. Yeah, calling their names, that's a great point, Ben. Because the dogs might not really know what's going on, as Ben had mentioned earlier, by calling their names, they might look towards that source. So yeah, great points. So now I'll go into a bit of perceptions of purpose and reason for attendance. So these are 5 themes that emerged from the interviews. So purpose to improve mental health, connect with other humans and the dogs. Some people just attended out of curiosity, and others thought the purpose was to continue the in-person program. Connection was the most salient topic though, and importantly, the connection they spoke about was not only in relation to their animals, but to the people too, such as the handlers, which brings me to my next point here. There was preliminary evidence of an unexpected program outcome, which was peer connection. The in-person program was largely focused on connection with dogs. Although this remains so in the Zoom sessions, peer connection emerged as important to those in the context of COVID-19. This quote from a staff member illustrates how the remote program facilitates peer connection. So the benefit to the online program is it gives me a constant, a touching point with my work environment with colleagues. It replaces bumping into someone at the coffee shop. I see my regular team all the time, but I miss that broader community, and this is just a slice of that broader community. This highlights the unique and important role that handlers play in the virtual environment, which was not as salient during the in-person sessions. If any of you are or are thinking of facilitating remote or online programming, it's interesting to look at these unintended outcomes that may emerge as a result of the pandemic. So perhaps peer connection is to be expected from many virtual programs. So I realize this says poll, but we're just going to go ahead and ask the question for the chat box. So we asked interviewees to quantify how much they attended the Zoom sessions for the animals versus the humans. And I would like you to guess the percentage of interviewees that said they attended the sessions only for the animals. So I'll just place this question in the chat box here.
Hey, Shanice, we figured out how to do a poll midway through.
Oh, did you get it up?
We did. We only have a few responses, but if everybody wants to check the Whova poll again quick, we can try to get some responses in there.
Awesome. I will just wait for a few more responses. So I'm seeing a lot of 80% guesses, a little bit of 40, 120%. Yeah, the findings actually really surprised us. Only 20% of the interviewees, so that's 2 out of 10, attended only for the animals. 80% of people, or 8 out of 10, attended for a combination of the animals and humans. So 4 out of 8 said it was about a 50-50 split. 3 out of 8 attended more for the animals than for the humans. And 1 out of 8 said that they attended to connect more with the humans than the animals. And this was especially interesting as we had previously assumed that physical touch, such as petting the dog, was the largest contributor to the program's success. But these evaluation results suggest that there can be more to it than that physical touch aspect. So interviewees shared their thoughts on the advantages that the remote program had over the in-person program. One student said, "In my circle, I know there are some people with social anxiety. They don't go out and do these things because they don't want the social interaction. So I think that this would be huge for them." Another said, "I like the anonymity. Sometimes on Thursdays, I'm pushing through the week. I don't really want to have my camera on. I'd rather just be faceless and nameless. There's less pressure." The diversity of responses we got for this question suggests that the remote program is valuable for a wide audience. And program feedback from stakeholders and interviewees was largely positive, strongly indicating their enjoyment. For example, students were really appreciative of the handlers, saying, "I think the handlers have a tough job because they're trying to convey feelings of warmth and empathy and inclusion and still be interesting and dynamic. They're having to carry the whole conversation, so I think they have a really hard job and they're doing really great." As I mentioned earlier, the role of the handlers changed in the remote program, and I'm sure that others volunteering or who have volunteering type programs that have transitioned online have also experienced these changes in how the program operates. So the next step is for us to assess the expected outcomes of the remote program, and we'll start with looking at short-term outcomes such as comfort, love, support, and happiness. A stakeholder meeting will help us adjust the program outcomes to more accurately reflect the Zoom sessions. And then we'll do qualitative interviews again with the session attendees to assess those short-term or cognitive outcomes. And then handlers, we're also going to gain their perspective by emailing them a questionnaire. And they're in a unique perspective because some of them have done in-person and online volunteering, so they'll be able to maybe talk about those differences. So on behalf of One Health Office at USask and St. John Ambulance Therapy Dogs, we want to thank you for your attention and participation in our session today. We want to open it up to any questions or comments you may have about anything that was discussed. Feel free to use either chat box. And then I'll just place our website and social media in the chat boxes as well, in case you're interested.
Also, if anybody watching is here with their animal companion, we would love to see them and can just get as many dogs or cats or other weird animals that you may have in your home on the screen.
Oops. And as well, if you ever want to contact us, there is a contact form on the Therapy Dog website, therapydogs.ca. So if you don't have any questions now, but think of some in the future, you're welcome to email us through that form.
I'm going to, I'll stop a share, gather review, just in case people have some puppies on screen. I think Kate wanted to take a shot with all the dogs, and if there's not a lot of questions, we can also just do a little bit of a therapy dog visit to close this out. I know that Tanya and Zaphod are experts at this, and Lola never gets to do it because we're always facilitating them.
Is Lola a therapy dog?
No, I actually got Lola after the pandemic shut down all the testing. So I've been able to do testing for a year. Though I believe that one day she will be. She's pretty lovable and she's not nearly as anxious as my other dog.
Yeah. Oh.
Tanya, you have another dog there as well, don't you?
I do. Stanley, he was coming over a little bit earlier. And he often joins when we're doing stuff online. He often just puts himself right in the middle of the camera. I'll see if he'll come over. One moment.
Sure. Yeah, a question that we often get asked in our office because of all the therapy dog work we do is what really makes a therapy dog? And I'm sure Tanya can actually probably give a great live example because she has two dogs. Zaphod is a therapy dog. Stanley is not a therapy dog. So maybe you just want to speak to like, what is the difference? Like, why is it that Zaphod can do it and Stanley can't?
Sure. I think a lot of it for me is about temperament. So Zaphod is super calm and chill and is fine in all kinds of different circumstances with strangers, with large groups of people, with lots of noises and just different kinds of stimuli. And actually that's what part of the testing around a therapy dog involves, is how handlers and dogs react to unexpected stimulus, let's say it that way. Whereas Stanley is super gentle and sweet and lovable always. And at home, he's very calm and still, but out in the world, he reacts to stimulus. So he jumps at noises. He's a bit protective, and that's fine. But just in those settings where you have, you know, people, and especially like children or just people who sometimes do unanticipated things, that's why Stanley is not a therapy dog. But he makes his online appearances every now and then. Yeah, and I think as a handler, you some of the qualities would be just, you know, an ability to facilitate conversation and listen to people and kind of judge a situation as to whether people want to talk or not talk, things like that. But also you need to be prepared for kind of unanticipated things as well, because they do come up in the visits. Like Zaphod and I used to visit in a hospital, and a lot of just stuff that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate comes your way, or people ask certain questions or want to engage in certain ways, and maybe you just need to kind of roll with that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying there. As I know, when I was coordinating the program in person on campus, we would often get like a lot of repeat students coming to see specific dogs, and they were developing like relationships. Like we had a Zaphod fan club. There was definitely a Womble fan club, but as students were coming to see these dogs more and more regularly, they were really building relationships with the dog and the handler. And sometimes we would get students disclosing sometimes worrisome mental health information. And that is why when we are doing these types of events, we usually always have like a mental health dedicated professional available. We always make sure that we're handing out tons of different mental health tips, resources, so that when those situations do come up, we are prepared, because you never know what's going to happen. And I think there's a lot of truth to the fact that sometimes people are just more comfortable sharing things with a dog than they are with a human. So there's just so many different considerations on the mental health level.
Yeah, and there's been times, Alexandria, where I've been in a place where the person talks to Zaphod and not to me. And that's okay. That's great.
That's really wonderful. And to expand on Alexandria there, even when we transitioned online, we kept that peer health component. Peer health was the mental health professionals that we helped provide resources. So we made sure that in our meetings, if there was any reason that anybody was struggling or anything like that, we had somebody on hand in the Zoom meeting that they could talk to and they could get resources from.
For sure. Oh, and we're getting some nice feedback from some people in the chat. Not questions, but Shanice is kind of fielding that. From Donna saying, love the breathing exercise with Tanya and Zaphod. Already have added your website and app to my phone. Awesome. We love hearing that. We love that you're at the university helping students. Well, and this is the other thing. We are like a student-based program, but we actually get sometimes I think more staff and faculty come into events than students, which is like amazing because it's not just for students, it's for everybody, right? Anybody who's an animal lover, and even people we have found that are sometimes they're not really comfortable with dogs because they've never had interactions with them. Therapy dogs are amazing if somebody has like a little bit of a dog fear and they've never really interacted with them before, because they are basically, we call them bomb proof sometimes, probably not the best term, but we do say that like in our St. John testing. Also from Sean, you guys rock. Thank you, Sean. Thanks again, Donna. But yeah, we're just about out of time. If anybody has any last questions, feel free to just shout it out. Or as Shanice already said, we are available, super easy to find. We're all over social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, therapydogs.ca. That is us. That is where you can absolutely find us or ask any follow-up questions.
And please breathe well.
Thanks so much, everybody.